Well, joining us live now on the show from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, is Arise business correspondent, Rotus Oddiri, and Arise State House correspondent, Adesuwa Omoruan. Now, Rotus and Adesuwa, good to see you and to have you on the program. Looks like the weather this year is a bit friendly, not as bad as it was last year. But Rotus, let me start with you. Africa is not an aid case; it's an investment case or destination, as your last guest just made clear. But what is the African agenda, and how will you assess the African agenda at Davos this week? Rotus? Rotus?
Dr. Abasi, good morning to you. Good
morning.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. I hope you can hear us.
Clearly, yes. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, they can hear us. So, good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, so as far as Africa's agenda is concerned, I mean, just speaking to the South Africans, for example, South Africa House here, they're focused on the G20, wanting to improve trade relations. That, of course, is one. They basically solidify what it is they want to achieve here. For Nigeria, you already heard from the Minister of Trade and Investment, the discussions that are going on here. And then I thought it was important that we talk to the multilateral financial institutions like the AFC that you just heard from, and also the Afri-Exim Bank. Both of them being very intentional about putting forward development for Africa and getting the necessary capital that was needed. I'll let Adesuwa speak to what else she observed as far as Africa's agenda here.
Yes, Rotus, I think Vice President Kashim Shettima, who is leading Nigeria's delegation to the WEF this year, has been consistent with the message of Africa bringing the frontier, and Nigeria in particular. He's been selling the message of Nigeria's burgeoning youth and, the capacity, the digital age. He's talking about Nigeria's digital economy. Some will argue that perhaps we don't have the infrastructure yet to, be on that pedestal to
like
boast.
Electricity.
Exactly. But the Vice President is consistent to say, hey, we're getting there. We have the youth who are, vicious, they're brilliant, they want to get things done, and so with that optimistic outlook from the continent, we can't just be, the best bride, not just the bride, but the best bride everybody wants to do business with.
That's the Africa update here as far as we've seen things. I think everybody was impressed so far.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear. I can almost feel the cold here from the way you're both speaking. But tell us about Europe. We've spoken about Africa. You've spoken about Africa. How about Europe?
Yeah, no, as far as Europe is concerned, remember, I think it was day before yesterday, we talked about the Competition Markets Authority removing their head because of too much red tape. And I know we'll get to Donald Trump. He also mentioned the fact that there's just too much regulation in Europe. I think the example he gave yesterday was about a project he had in Ireland. He got his approval in less than a week, but when it came to dealing with the EU, they told him it took about 5 or 6 years. So it's been all about over-regulation in Europe and how Europe needs to cut the red tape in order to be more competitive. Did you have any thoughts on how you're studying things in Europe?
The overarching theme here has been Donald Trump and the US, and even for the EU, and for the EU officials who have been speaking at Davos this year, they've been very cautious. Their outlook in dealing with US. We heard from Ursula von der Leyen, we heard from different ministers from the EU who say, how exactly do we deal with Donald Trump? The taxes, the tariffs, are they going to come? And when they come, how do we deal with it? That has been like the theme really here at Davos when you look at the EU, because Donald Trump is here, is here to stay for another 4 years. How do they deal with him?
Can we also talk about, I know we have to talk about Trump, but can we talk about the common sense and the brilliance in the room by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala yesterday when it came to the tariff debate? How she was empirically able to break it down for us that if we go on this tariff war Trump wants to start, is going to cause double-digit economic deceleration among nations of the earth. And she plotted an historical antecedents of the 1930s and how this has affected everybody. I mean, can we just talk through the common sense in the room? Because she was probably the only adult in the room in this cacophony of tariffs we're talking in the world.
You're right. And in fact, Adesuwa did even cover Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's debate on tariffs here at the World Economic Forum. And I think she's an award recipient, right, for the This Day Award. So congrats again to her. So,
Woman of the Year.
Woman of the Year. Yeah, so look, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has a lot of work ahead of her, right? It's just, in fact, I think the business secretary of the UK, Jonathan Reynolds, he wants to actually put a pitch forward to Trump to tell them that, listen, the UK shouldn't be getting any tariffs because you don't have a trade, as the US doesn't have a trade deficit. There's issues within, China, Australia, lots of it. So, yeah, Rufai, you are correct. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is the adult in the room. That was a very, very pretty good session that she had on tariffs and trade. The World Trade Organization is going to be dealing a lot. And yeah, it's good to have her at the helm. Whether she will be listened to or not is another story because Trump seems to have his own agenda. Adesuwa, what do you think of Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's?
She says, stop hyperventilating. I think that's what she said yesterday. And she did explain that, yes, globalization is, global cooperation is stalling, but we haven't regressed so drastically that everybody should be worried. And she's saying, if you look at the trade globally, we still have about 70% of that under the WTO. So it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Right. And she did say, I mean, when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. We'll deal with Donald Trump. Yeah, basically.
Well,
deal with Donald Trump.
Very quickly, before you go, Rotus, you recall that yesterday, after President Trump's statement, oil price dropped by 1%. Peabody, the leading U.S. coal company, had its stock price, going up by about 4%. Markets reacted immediately. But here was President Trump, or what do you think, behaving like the, global president, telling countries of the world, to reduce interest rates and telling OPEC to cut down oil prices because that would seem to be encouraging Russia, military machine, to go after and sustain the war against Ukraine. Very briefly.
Dr. Abati, that speech, look, OPEC, we've been following OPEC oil prices daily, right, on Arise News. OPEC has done everything they can to increase oil prices because oil prices are able to support the budgets of each members of OPEC, of which Nigeria is a member. So for Trump to just say that they should bring down prices, it's market forces that determine oil prices. And the interest rate part, Dr. Abati, you yourself, you talk a lot about the independence of the Federal Reserve and central banks around the world. Look, it's going to be very interesting, but you can't just make a declaration. It's market forces that determine interest rates and determine oil prices. So we're all strapped in for what is going to be a very interesting 2025.
I know those interest rates, but the Fed, for instance, in the US, and wherever in the world you look at it, interest rates are determined by Federal Reserves, and they're very independent. Right. So you wonder how is it going to be by fiat or some more executive orders? Yeah. They are independent. How he's going to wave the wand and ensure that interest rates are down, we'll see. We'll see.
U.S. executive orders won't work in Nigeria.
Well, thank you both for such a robust update from World Economic Forum this year. Thank you very much, Adesuwa and Rotus. Now go inside and keep warm, please.